Good day, everyone. My name is Omolara Ishola. I'm the host of Possibilities Divine. I just want to do um, a quick spiel on maturity as a character trait to develop in marriage. I got a few feedback from a number of people in the last little while, and that kind of encouraged me to further nudge people on improving their character traits, improving their attitude and their disposition in marriage. Don't don't bother about the negative things you hear about marriage. A lot of marriages are breaking down, that's true. However, a lot of people are making progress in terms of developing, improving themselves, and making sure their marriages work. So today we're going to be talking about a topic that sometimes we assume we know much about it or we have an understanding. And the topic is maturity. What is maturity? I went to check the dictionary meaning of maturity, and maturity is defined as ability to respond appropriately to the environment in the right manner. Maturity is defined as ability to respond to the environment in an appropriate manner. This response does not come naturally, but it is learned. And that was what really got my attention. So maturity is not something that you would say, oh, I was born with it, but it is actually a learned trait. That means for you to show maturity, you have to learn from your environment, from the pages of a book, from things you read. And so maturity is very, very key in a marriage relationship, because you're dealing with somebody that you grew up differently. They probably are set in their ways before you got married. So it is important for us to understand that maturity is a learned trait. It is not something that you are born with or that is innate. And I also want to add that emotional maturity is referred to as the ability to understand and manage emotions. And you would agree with me that there is no other place where your emotions are tested than in marriage. Somebody that claims to love you head and toe all of a sudden becomes a person who presses your button most, especially in the wrong way. I remember the very first few years of marriage, if I can use myself as an example. I like to do that just so that you know that if it can work for me, definitely it can work for you. I got married. I love my husband. He loves me too. But he had some things that he usually does. Not that they are wrong. For example, if you say, thermometer, my husband will automatically form an impromptu song that will include thermometer. For starters, it was okay, but over time, it used to get on my nerves badly, and I usually become very irritated by it. Why do you have to sing about every single thing? If you're cooking, there's a song for it. If whatever you're doing, there's always a song. But when we started having children, that skill became very handy. When I'm tired and the baby is crying, he just picks up the baby and he makes up an impromptu song, and before you know it, the baby is sleeping peacefully. So it was an advantage when we were having children. And fast forward to a few years after, I had to say to myself, this thing is not bad. That is just his mannerism. And I learned to look away from it, and I started looking at the advantages actually, so that now if he's singing any impromptu song, I will start dancing, and I would, if I've heard the song before or if I know the tune, I start singing with him. So something that started off as something variant, it actually has added to one of the ways that we make fun and crack jokes. Yours might not be singing, yours might be something different. However, instead of considering everything from a negative perspective, instead of being unduly worked up about things that you can work with, overlook, display maturity about, it's very important for you to enjoy your life every moment. The amount of time you spend being worked up, bottling things up, if you spend that time enjoying your spouse's company, you will not only will you live a better life, but you will always have fun every time you're together. There are key areas that I want us to look at in terms of maturity. Maturity is what it involves responsibility. In a marriage relationship, a mature person attempts to understand whatever situation they find themselves. Let's say, for example, you guys are, for example, if you live in the environment where I live, responsibility is knowing that, okay, it's the man's responsibility to provide for the family. However, if my husband does a job that can meet all our needs, it makes sense for me to find a job to augment whatever he brings in. So maturity is not to say, after all, my friends who are housewives, they don't work and they live large. Every man's situation is different. Maturity is what will let you consider your own personal situation and say, how can I understand it? How can I make things better? Maturity is one thing that would not allow you to play the blame game. For example, let's say you can't change your car as often as your friend does. Maturity will tell you that as long as I have a functioning car, I should live within my means and make myself happy. So maturity involves responsibility, either as a man or as a woman. You ought to know that, okay, if my wife earns more than I do, responsibility is, what else can I do to make her life easier? Since she's the one who will bring the bigger dough in, I don't need to get her overworked so that I can enjoy her. I can enjoy her company and we can enjoy whatever life we are building together. Maturity will make you understand in what ways can I step in? Even though I might be an African man, I might be a Caucasian man, I might be whatever man, can I assist this woman? Even in areas where people will frown at, I'm like, excuse you, how can you be doing that? That is not a man's role. Maturity will let you know that beyond anybody's role, as long as I'm happy, as long as my wife is happy, and as long as our children are happy, that is what matters. That is what a responsible person does. The other thing that a mature person does is growth. A mature person strives to learn and develop his or herself. Sometimes when you get married, you probably, when I'm talking about growth, I'm not even talking alone about, I'm not referring it to your degree alone. You might get married and you might have degrees and you might still be immature. Maturity is an acquired skill, like I said, and you don't only acquire it by going to school. Maturity comes from our life experiences. Maturity comes from either mentoring or the things that we've been exposed to in life. For example, a lot of people think maturity comes as a result of age. No, we have boys that are in their 50s and we have men that are in their 20s. So maturity is not a function of age. It is a function of how you're able to react appropriately to a situation. For example, a young guy who knows what he looks out for in marriage would figure out, what can I do? How can I better improve my life? How can I better improve the life of my wife? How can I better improve the life of my children? How can I provide for the future? A young man who is in his 20s might have that kind of futuristic ideas. Meanwhile, a man who is in his 50s or tending towards 60 might not even care. He might just be living by the moment, one day at a time, sweet Jesus. And whatever comes, we'll just get by. So maturity is more than I'm in my 40s or I'm in my 50s. And again, that's why it's usually said that boys and girls shouldn't get married. Marriage is not for boys and girls. Marriage is for men and women because you are expected to be matured before you go into marriage. One of the areas you can grow yourself is, what does the world that I have, what does it have to offer me? For example, a few years ago, there was nothing like internet in the village where I was, in the environment where I found myself. After a while, everybody started talking about internet, technology, and that's why you go on the internet and you find some people who are tech savvy. They are in their 60s, they're in their 70s, and they are abreast of what's going on. For example, if you're in your 30s and you say, I don't even care about technology, I don't want to get involved about technology, and you find out that, number one, you'll become obsolete. So maturity means, this technology thing, it is overwhelming, it is challenging. However, I will keep up because my husband travels a great deal and most of the time he's not home. How can I keep in touch? How can we stay connected? Okay, I have WhatsApp on my phone, I have Facebook, I have FaceTime, and I understand how to do those things. Well, at this junction, I have to say something. Ever since television has evolved and you have all sorts of techie stuff attached to it, I haven't been able to keep abreast with it. So sometimes I find myself behaving like an illiterate. I have to call my children, A, B, can you switch on the television for me? Can you switch it to what channel? And my children will always make fun of me. And the only reason why I don't feel bad about that is because I don't know what is television going to do for me. However, when you are on the internet, if you have a business, you're able to connect with other people. If you're at work, you are expected to have an understanding of how to use those things to function. So growth is being abreast with what's going on in your world. For example, if your husband works in an office and your husband is an executive and you have said to yourself, I'm not going to get on the wagon of technology. I'm just going to be doing pen and paper. You find yourself that you will not be able to. Your husband says, oh, I need a document. Can you scan and email it to me? And you're like, I don't even know how to get about it. You don't have an idea of how to connect a scanner to a printer. Things like that will make your husband wonder, what kind of person is this? And those will always cause friction unnecessarily. It's not all the time that your husband will need you to scan a document. However, it's important for you to grow yourself as a man. In what area are you growing? Maybe you've only had a degree. Is there an opportunity to improve yourself so that you can become better, so that you can increase perhaps maybe your financial position? Growth is the only permanent thing. And the moment you stop growing, you start to die. You start to decay. So do you need to grow spiritually? The understanding of the word of God, nobody has the monopoly of it. Sometimes people will be like, the man of God is in town. How did that man of God become a man of God? A regular man like you sat down, dedicated time to studying the word of God, and today he becomes an authority on it because God is God for all. He doesn't choose the people that, okay, this person I will reveal myself to him, another person I will not. God is our God. And so for as the head of the home, every man should aspire for growth, spiritual growth, intellectual growth, physical growth in every ramification. And that is how you can that's how you can stay relevant and mature. Accommodating. A lot of, it's very easy to pick faults with people. Oh, growing up, my father never put his socks in the north and south. My father, this is the way my father handled his books. This is the way my father handled this. This is the way my father handled that. Or a man can also say, my mom, this is the way she used to make her quicker road. This is the way my mom did this. When you become married, accommodating each other is very essential. For example, your wife might not know how to do certain things, but being able to accommodate them and teach them and assist them will make them better people. There was a story of a man who taught his wife how to cook. And years after, the woman became somebody who became very interested in recipes, who could cook, who could do all sorts. And today now, he doesn't have to worry about going to the kitchen. If he goes into the kitchen, he's just going for fun. And there's so many other shortcomings that people might have as a result of their background that when we are accommodating, we can bring a turnaround. We can bring changes into their lives. At the end of the day, those changes will work for the whole family. There are more than one ways of doing things. That's something you need to notice. When my husband and I got married, even though we're both from the same tribe, however, there are certain differences in the way things are done. We're still from different places, even within that same tribe. And so we would laugh and make fun of ourselves because we say, this is how we say it. And I'll say, this is how we say it. So now imagine if it's an interracial or any other marriage that is not, you're not from the same tribe, you're not from the same race, things like that tend to have negative effect. But a mature person is able to live above that. You are accommodating, realizing that, I never knew people do things that way. Okay, let's try it your own way. And you'll be amazed that trying it somebody else's way might be easier, simpler, or more fun. So a mature person in marriage is accommodating. He or she is open to learn new things. He or she does not feel threatened when others disagree with them. For example, if your husband says, no, I don't want things done this way, then you don't feel, okay, is he trying to change me? Is he trying to say he's the only one who knows? No. However, learning to say, let me see a different perspective. Let me check out how other people do it, because we never see things the way they are. We see things the way we are. So sometimes we are like, okay, this is how I'm used to doing it. But being open to how somebody else does it might just teach you some new things. Don't be like a dog and say, oh, you can never teach an old dog new tricks. Flexibility. Every situation is an opportunity to showcase how unique you are. Mature people are quick to adapt to new things or embrace change. For example, maybe you've been wearing the same kind of pajamas since the Queen Elizabeth became the Queen in England. And your husband says, change. Don't say, no, this is the definition of pajamas that I know. It has to be flannel. Be flexible. Be willing to change. Be open to new things. Be adventurous. Mature people are adventurous. They like to see things from another person's perspective. They like to understand, why does it work this way? Okay, show me. Do you know that it is strength when you ask people to show you something? It is not weakness when you say, can you tell me? Can you teach me? Can you enlighten me? Can you tell me more? Those are words that are common to people who are mature. So in marriage, by reason of exposure, by reason of background, your spouse is definitely going to be different from you. But are you flexible to learn from them? Some of us, maybe we've never been used to eating with fork and knife. You've never used any of those things. There was never any really opportunity. There was no opportunity for you to use those things. If your spouse says, can we do it this way? Don't say, no. When you want to eat in my village, your fingers are sufficient. Will you be eating with your fingers when you go for estate dining? You need to rehearse for your future. You need to rehearse for where you're going, and you will be exposed. You meet different people. So be prepared for where you're going. So flexibility is important. A mature individual is willing to go with the ride and adjust for peace sake. Everything does not have to end in an argument. That sometimes you have to learn. And I would admit at this junction that I had to learn a number of things to become mature. For example, growing up, if you're upset with somebody, that might be it. You're upset totally. You don't even want to talk to them. You don't want to hear anything from them. You're just upset until you resolve it and get over that. But as a mature person, you're upset with your spouse. Guests coming. You must be able to function without allowing the guests to know there's a problem somewhere. It's not that your husband should say, and you say no, so that the guests will know that, oh, there's a problem. It's possible for you to just, okay, all right, we will come back to that issue. Not that you're going to sweep it under the carpet, but you don't want the whole world to know what's going on. And that is maturity. By the time they go and everything goes well, you're able to say, you know what, you did this, I didn't like it, and then you sort it out. Mature people don't always fight. And if you've been married for 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12 years, you should be able to count on your fingers. You should scarcely be able to count on your fingers the number of times you fight, quarrel, or disagree. Maturity helps you to overlook offenses. Maturity helps you to overlook offenses. And age does not necessarily, I have a question here. Can age determine maturity? Yes, if you're willing to learn, like if you remember what I said is that maturity is learned. So if as you go on, those are some of the things that life teaches us. The things that you will get upset at age 18 are not necessarily the things that you will get upset about at age 32. So age, to some extent, can determine maturity. However, it's not the only determining factor that once I am age 45, I have to be mature. We have a lot of people who have age on their side, but they are not mature. And one of the things that a mature person does is a mature person respect. A mature person respects the other person. For example, I will not take my husband for granted because he's my husband. Many years ago, when we were still younger, I would say, hey, once a man, it doesn't matter how old he is, once he asks a girl out, they become age mates, and that is it. However, a man also should realize that no matter how young a woman is, once she becomes your wife, you still owe her respect. Yesterday, one of the impromptu songs that my husband sings, he was singing the song and he was like, he said, okay, baby, I want to sing for you in your dialect. And he was making it up. And as he was singing, he said, the young girl that I married a few years ago has now become my mother. And, I laughed and laughed. But that is the reality of it. A few years ago, people will be like, my husband is how many years older than I am. Now it doesn't matter how many years he is older than I am, because I have been able to learn so that we function at the same level. So when we're taking decisions, I can take decisions and you'll be like, yeah, baby, that's right. And that everything still ties back to responsibility, growth, accommodating, flexibility, and respect. In my culture, when you respect, there's a particular way you use the singular and plural tense of the word. But that is not what connotes respect. Respect could also be in the way you give a person space, even within marriage. A wife, do you respect your husband enough to allow him to make decisions without second guessing him, without always doubting and asking and querying his authority? I have learned and I have read that of all the things in the world, the best way, the best gift you can give a man within marriage is respect. No wonder the Bible specifies it. The Bible says, wives, respect your husband. Do you have an understanding of what respect means to your husband? If you don't, go and learn it. Because if you're calling him our daddy and so-and-so's daddy, and yet you do not give him the kind of respect he deserves, you will still fall short. His respect to him might just be maybe making sure if he says, I don't like this, just making sure that you don't do those things he doesn't like. Do you respect your wife? Or do you just treat your wife as a glorified housemaid? Do you respect your wife enough to accommodate her views when you're trying to make decisions about the family, about the children, about the home, about investments, about finances, about life generally? Who determines where you live? Who determines a whole lot of other things? Do you respect your wife enough to accommodate her views? So each person, man, woman, we should sit down and understand, what does it mean? What does respect mean to my spouse? A mature person will go the extra length to discover that. And pretty much that's about the things that I wanted to highlight today, the 5 points that I want to talk about maturity. Maturity is not picking fights at every opportunity. My mentor will say, do not honor every invitation to fight. As a woman, it's very easy. In-law issues, your in-laws will come, the same issues that you've been having with your in-laws since 1928. You're still having those issues. When are you going to grow up? Somebody says that they're stepping on my toes. Remove your foot now. If they're stepping on your toes, remove your foot and put them in shoes and fold them under the chair so that nobody will be able to step on them. Maturity means being able to overlook offenses. Your husband committed an error in investments 5 years ago. That man is yet to recover, because every time you're thinking about investment, I don't trust your judgment. Oh, I don't trust your judgment. Remember what happened to the money we invested? How we lost everything. I don't want to come back to ground zero. And the poor man is rattled. You have taken away his confidence because he made a mistake. Maturity will say, darling, you remember the price we paid for that? Let us get informed. Let us have enough information to make an informed decision. So you are still saying the same thing without reducing the man to zero. How do you as a mature person talk to your wife? Your wife is talking to a friend on the phone. Yes, you need her right now. You don't shout down on her and say, get off the phone. You're always on the phone. And then whoever she's talking to can hear on the other side. A mature person will say, my dear, you spend way too much time on the phone. And I mean, it's important for you to be able to balance it. I'm not saying don't talk on the phone, but I mean, draw a line. Not that everybody would know that you were the one who brought your wife from your village to whatever city, especially for those of us who are here in diaspora. You're talking to your wife, you make her feel worthless. Why? You sponsored her. The entire village knows you brought her from poverty and all that. And now you are saying, now you have become too big for me. I cannot even talk to you. A mature person, you earn respect. There's certain people who have done so many things for their wives that the wives will say, I am indebted forever. I'm grateful. Why? Because they have demonstrated maturity. They don't rub it in the women's faces that I have done you good. The same woman who seems to not have much today might be the one who will do you good tomorrow. And so Possibilities Divine is about fostering and developing godly relationships, building relationships. If there are things that we know can positively affect or positively help your marriage, those are the things we talk about. If you have any questions, please inbox them. And later tonight, we're going to be having a monthly prayer meeting. Please do join us. It's going to be a live stream as well. It's going to be right here at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. God bless you and have a good day. Remember, with God, all things are possible. Bye now.